obviously super high expectations for this movie because of everything that happened with Top Gun Maverick last year, how popular Tom Cruise is right now, saving Hollywood, according to Steven Spielberg. So a lot of high expectations for Dead Reckoning Part 1. And there's some positives and there's a couple small disappointments when you do look at the box office. Because when you look at domestically, it was projected to have a $90 to $100 million 5-day opening and over $60 million for the traditional 3-day. It fell a little bit short of those. So actually behind Fallout in terms of the 3-day, but did set a record for 5-day weekend, beating Mission Impossible 2 way back in the day. But when you look at the global box office, the international box office, there's a lot of positives. And this is, as we've talked about time and time again, some people don't fucking understand and they don't understand the different franchises. Mission Impossible as a franchise is very, very international heavy. It's always been that way. When you look at, let's just look at the last 4. Ghost Protocol, $200 million domestic, almost $500 million international. Rogue Nation, $200 million domestic, almost $500 million international. Mission Impossible Fallout, 220 domestic, around 550 international. It's always skewed that way. It doesn't have massive domestic returns. But even with that being said, considering this is a movie that does have to make $900 million. It needs to do a lot better than we saw from Mission Impossible Fallout just to break even. So there's rights to be concerned about it. Like, we should be looking at this and looking very closely, because if it doesn't get to 900 million, you are potentially looking at a loss for Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible. But to say it's flopping or something like that, that's not true. It's doing very well, significantly better than we saw from Mission Impossible Fallout's global opening. 156 million global opening for that movie, 235 million for Dead Reckoning. What's your take on this entire thing, Jeremy? It's tough to parse through it.
I think that Mission Impossible is going to have really good legs. I just think that this is a movie where this isn't like, it's almost like when Avatar opened up, relatively weak, all things considered, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of speculation. Oh, it's over for Avatar. It's like that movie had incredible legs. I just think that a movie like this is going to have legs. I think that, people, general audiences are still going to go out and see this movie. And again, it only needs to do around 200 million domestically to kind of keep pace with the rest of the films. It's the international box office. Has it opened up in all territories?
I think Japan's the only one, like the only big one that hasn't.
Okay.
And usually they do decent in Japan. I mean, it's not going to like be crazy or anything. It's
Yeah.
it's tracking a lot less in China than Fallout did. But again, the Chinese box office, you're only getting 25% of that cut anyway. So that's not super important to the long-term scheme of things.
Yeah, and I also do think, as much as I think she's a complete nutcase when it comes to her Sound of Freedom coverage, I saw Grace Randolph talking about it, that Sound of Freedom has definitely kind of cut into this movie a little bit. No, I 100% believe that. Like, I think people with the excitement of Sound of Freedom, I think that's really cut into it. And then you got Oppenheimer coming next week, which I think Oppenheimer might be overshadowing Mission Impossible in some people's eyes. Not from a standpoint of just like, obviously, I think Mission Impossible will end up making more money than Oppenheimer, and I think Barbie will make more money than Oppenheimer. But Oppenheimer is going to be a really big movie for a certain segment of people. It just will. And so there's just a ton of competition right now. But ultimately, in terms of the film itself, we've seen the film. Mission Impossible 7. It's fantastic. It's awesome. And I feel like this international is going to push this movie. Will it make the 900? You said it needs to make 900 million to break even.
Yeah, the budget's $290 million.
So
Remember, this is a movie that got delayed significantly, and they were pretty much the first ones to start up with the COVID protocols. So that ended up it ballooned the cost of this movie because they were trying to be the first ones to kind of get it done. So when you do look at it, it's in the same realm as something like Dial of Destiny, honestly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this movie opened over 100 million more than Dial of Destiny did. And it's going to have much better legs. But still, there's a lot to look at when it comes to this. It's a weird opening, right? So $56 million 3-day is the Friday, Saturday, Sunday number. If it were a normal opening, say like Fallout, you would also get Thursday previews counted into that 3-day weekend, which would have pushed it over what Fallout did by a little bit, by a hair. So you do have to look at that. But You talked about Avatar and Avatar's, opening and what people were looking at. There was two things with Avatar. One was it opened to like $135 million domestically, somewhere around there. But also you knew that the Christmas holiday was coming up the following week.
Yeah.
And it didn't have near the competition that something like this has.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Take a look at Top Gun Maverick and what Top Gun Maverick did. Its global opening for Top Gun Maverick was just over $250 million. Sorry, 248. But it had a massive domestic number, like $130 million opening domestically. Memorial holiday, all these things factor in. So really, it's too early to fucking tell. We're going to have to see how it does and the type of legs it has. Tom Cruise movies do really well typically with holds, but you do have some big hitters that could suck up some of that audience as well over the next couple weeks. So
the next week is what's going to be the big hurdle for Mission Impossible now, because of Oppenheimer and Barbie really do cover both demographics, all demographics, basically the whole side of the movie sphere. Basically, you've got the general audience and the normies that are going to go out to see the Barbie movie. Then you've got the hardcores that are going to go see Oppenheimer. So that is going to hurt it. Plus, I think Sound of Freedom is going to continue to just make noise at the box office. I think it's going to continue to trend in the right direction. So I think right now Mission Impossible's biggest challenge is too much competition, but I still feel like in the long run it's going to do well. Maybe it won't make money, and that'll be something we'll have to cover when we cross that bridge. But the international box office will be interesting to see for sure.